It's Friday, March 20th, 2026, and it's time to dive headfirst into the swamp. So, pretty please, give a like to the video and subscribe to the channel for daily updates you probably won't see in the mainstream. Every article is linked in the description, and if this video is too long for you, the highlight clips will begin dropping on this channel tomorrow morning. And as of today, Operation Epic Fury is sitting at 20 days, and possibly by the time you see this, if it's Saturday when you're watching this video, it'll of course be at 21 days, and the Democrat shutdown is at 34 days currently. So we are going to be starting with the insanity at our airports across America from the White House. This is intentional. Democrats are holding American travelers hostage and denying federal workers their paychecks for political leverage. In the games and reopening DHS already.
Behind the camera this morning with me, Roger, give them this perspective. It's
hey, look at this shit.
Unbelievable.
It's insane.
Thousands and thousands of travelers just
This
trying
is in Atlanta.
to get through the main
Of course, Atlanta's always
TSA
crowded.
checkpoint. They have wrapped this line through the baggage claim area over here by Delta.
Oh, man.
This is all
Whoa.
the TSA line. The line where you get your ID and boarding pass checked is all the way up there.
Good God, man.
It comes around here.
Thank God I'm not flying anywhere.
All the way around.
I'll say a prayer for y'all who are.
All the way around. It snakes through here. But then you have to take the escalator over there down to the baggage claim downstairs, and that's how you end up down here.
What?
Right now, according to that board, it says that the wait is 150 minutes.
Yeah,
Not
it's probably
sure if
longer
that's
than
accurate.
that. Probably
TSA
not.
workers
They don't want to
have been
put the real
calling
number
in
up.
sick due to missed paychecks, and that has slowed things down. This is what it looked like at LaGuardia.
Yeah, more TSA
earlier
workers
this
quit
morning.
over the last 24 hours, by the way.
This is the pre-check line. This is supposed to be the easy security.
Oh my God, it's
screening,
pre-check.
sneaking around Terminal B.
After pre-check,
And it's
then you
not
have to go into the
just
real
here.
line.
You can look at
And then after
airports
that line, you have
across
to go to the
country.
real
If you
line.
go somewhere, you got to get back. You got to get through the security line in Atlanta.
Oh my God, dude,
or
this must
Fort
be what hell is like.
Lauderdale, or Raleigh,
Constantly waiting in
or
lines.
Los Angeles. Flyers around the country have been dealing with wait times of up to 2 hours at some airports.
This is because the TSA agents are wrapped up in this.
And you know what Democrats are going to say? Well, at least ain't 5 hours. That's what the Republicans say.
Secretary Sean Duffy took to social media saying this situation is likely going to get worse.
Oh, it's getting
especially
worse.
If these TSA officers miss a second paycheck. They missed their first one on last Friday. The DHS says that more than 350 TSA officers have quit since the shutdown began last month.
It's more. It's more than that. It's gone up. That's an old number. It's gone way over 350 at this point. And there's some airports where over 50% of TSA agents are calling in sick. So the airports that are getting 3, 4, 5 hour waits, those are the airports where they are severely understaffed because they're using up their sick days. Because why wouldn't they? Rapid Response 47, family flying out of Atlanta arrives nearly 4 hours before their flight due to the massive TSA line as a result of the shutdown of DHS. Quote, I feel bad for the workers. They need to be paid. Democrats must end this cruel shutdown now. This is on CNN.
All right, hold on. Might as well ask you. Yeah. They want to know, what time is your flight scheduled for?
10:20.
Which you probably won't hear the word Democrat.
Well, we got here about 30 minutes ago, and, we've got, who knows?
Yeah. When you see this line the way it is, how frustrated are you with Congress? How about that? Because obviously the folks aren't being paid. So.
Well, I feel bad for the workers.
There you go.
I do feel bad.
I can hear your voice. Where are you guys going?
We're going to Jamaica.
Oh,
wow.
I wish I was going to Jamaica.
Yeah.
Look, I hope
you and I both.
Thank you. Yeah, at least there's that. There's a little bit of a smile here. I heard you say on the last part, what did you say they should be done?
They should be paid. They need to be paid.
Yes, they do.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Hope you guys have a safe flight.
Yep, they absolutely do. And he inched pretty close to blaming it on Democrats. He didn't quite get there. But of course, they didn't want to get all political with it. They just wanted to simply say that they should be getting paid, which they should. Secretary Sean Duffy, he is the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, which oversees not the Department of Homeland Security, but it oversees our airports and just our travel industry in general, transportation industry. 3 hours of security wait times today for passengers at Houston's Bush Airport, brought to you by Senator Schumer and the Democrats. This is from Matt Van Swol. Holy crap, the Houston TSA line is now stretched to a mind-blowing 150-minute wait time and is snaked around the airport, down the escalator, and into the baggage claim. This is insane. You've already seen that video, so we don't have to watch it a second time. Gunther Eagleman breaking. Chuck Schumer just ordered Senate Democrats to betray America. They're voting nay right now on opening DHS funding and paying our TSA workers. Nuke the filibuster and stop the Democrat lunacy on the Senate floor.
Vote underway in the Senate, which is expected to fail. This has to do with DHS funding once again, but we're looking at the numbers right now. Democrats are voting no on it. Democrats are expected to block it yet again. So where are we? 5 weeks now into this shutdown of DHS, and there is little to no optimism here on the Hill that this is going to get fixed anytime soon. And the Senate has been busy. They've been doing these nonstop debates on the Senate floor about the Save America Act, but they've also been going at it about this DHS funding drama. And yesterday we saw Senators Moreno and Slotkin clashing as Senator Moreno pitched a short-term 2-week funding bill for all of DHS while these negotiations are ongoing, while Slotkin countered by shooting it down, saying she only wants TSA funded. Take a listen.
What this means?
Oh, he only wants TSA funded. Yeah, to hell with the Coast Guard, to hell with FEMA, to hell with the Secret Service, to hell with cybersecurity. Next order, just in, Chuck Schumer has once again voted no on reopening DHS, but all but guaranteeing the funding bill will fail and TSA chaos will get worse. Everyone standing in those 3-hour TSA lines should pass that time by repeatedly calling Chuck Schumer's office, and that's what I've been saying. I think I said that every single day this week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and now I'm saying it again. When you're waiting in line, whether if it's even for a half an hour, which, yeah, good luck, but if you're waiting in line, no matter how long it is, you're standing there waiting and you got a bunch of people in front of you waiting for TSA. Just know the fact, even if you get through TSA within a half an hour, just know that they're not getting paid right now. They're going to be missing their second full paycheck next Friday, a week from now. And while you're waiting in line, you might as well call your Democrat senator. And if you don't have a Democrat senator, then call Chuck Schumer's office because he's the leader of the Senate Democrats. So this is the roll call vote.
Mr. Schumer, Mr. Schumer.
Mr. Schumer.
No.
All right, well, I guess that's that. Yay, 44, nay, 37. And anyway, Secretary Sean Duffy, Schumer DHS shutdown has cost more than 50,000 TSA workers to go unpaid. Many of them are now facing empty refrigerators, eviction notices, missed medical payments. And Senate Democrats work for the American people and put policies aside. Vote to fund DHS Gov. And I don't know why it said show more. There is no more to show. Yeah, they're missing everything. I mean, TSA workers, they're middle class. I would say at this point, on a good day, they're middle class. I mean, now that the middle class is just shrinking by the day. And there's some airports that are setting up food banks, which we're going to get to here in the next couple of posts, probably in the next few minutes. And it's not just those, it's their freaking utilities, man. It's their phone bill, their electric bill, even their car payment, their car insurance, gas, for crying out loud. All right, so this is on people.com. So we will have a quick look at this. TSA employees facing empty refrigerators, eviction notices. And what do we need to know? Let's see what People tells us what we need to know. TSA union leaders says workers are facing eviction notices. I mean, dude, what's up with the grammar these days? And empty refrigerators as they work without pay amid the ongoing partial government shutdown. The officers are pissed off. They want this to end, union leader Aaron Barker said during a press conference on Monday. They're ready to get back to some normalcy or some consistency with their lives. According to the Department of Homeland Security, more than 300 TSA officers have left the agency, and employee call-out rates continue to rise across the country, resulting in hours-long security lines. And again, as I said a minute ago, that number is higher. I'll have that linked below if you want to read the article in its entirety. Rapid Response 47. A food bank has been set up at Pittsburgh International Airport for TSA officers and CBP officers who haven't been paid in weeks as a result of Democrats shutting down DHS. It shouldn't have to come to this. Democrats need to pay our workers and end this shutdown.
The airport has teamed up with the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank, offering a food pantry for local TSA agents as well as Customs and Border Patrol officers.
Obviously, they're going without paychecks, and we want to do everything we can to support them.
250 boxes of fresh produce as well as non-perishables were delivered to the airport around 7 o'clock Thursday morning. The food bank says help will be provided as long as it's needed.
This is insane, dude. This is absolutely insane. This should be played from any Republican who's running for re-election needs to be playing this video clip. That TSA workers, again, the middle class, that they have to be accepting food bank donations. And these are the bare essentials, like the bare essentials. This is like shopping Aldi in the 90s, where you just get canned goods and potatoes. I doubt that they're going to get milk or dairy or anything of that sort. They're just going to get the very bare essentials. Maybe bread. I didn't see any loaves of bread. No, I don't think that's loaves of bread, but I'm sure that they probably have some in there somewhere. And probably not the kind of food that they want to be eating on a daily basis, to say the least. I'm sure some of those ingredients they might use if they cook from scratch. However, it's not going to be a whole lot to choose from. They're probably not getting steaks, probably not getting a decent amount of meats and proteins. Next order, breaking a whopping 400. So we're up to 400 now. That's the number I've been waiting for. TSA agents have now resigned due to Democrats withholding their paychecks. Agents have been seen leaving airports with boxes of donations to get by. Democrats keep cashing their paychecks while screwing over TSA agents, making $50,000 a year. It's disgusting.
I want to take a look at this video I quickly filmed on my phone. There were actually
this is on MS Now,
TSA
too.
agents holding boxes
Former
of donations
MSNBC.
of food, household supply. One agent, as they were passing us, said, "We're so grateful to our community for being able to support us in this way during a time where they aren't being paid." We also know from TSA that nearly 400 officers have quit their jobs altogether, and it takes about 4 to 6 months to completely train someone in one of these positions.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be some time before these airports are fully back up and operational. Chris?
Summer travel season will be here before we know it. My Eagle.
That's a point nobody's really brought up. That the fact that it takes them up to 6 months just to train these agents. So in order to find their replacements, and who the hell's going to want to work for TSA after this? This isn't the first time. This is the second time in 6 months that they've had to go without multiple paychecks. And they had to go through it back from, the end of September going into, early November, or did it start in October? It might have started in, early October, the last shutdown. But this one, going on for 34 days. It's been over a month. And if this shutdown goes, which I'm sure it's going to, there's no end in sight. If this shutdown goes on for just another, 10 days, less than 2 more weeks, then it's going to be the longest shutdown of any form in U.S. history, because the last shutdown that the Democrats put us through, it broke the record. That's the longest government shutdown that we've ever experienced. Now, of course, this isn't a full government shutdown. This is just a shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security, so it's just a partial, but still, nevertheless, we've never had to go through that long of a period of time with any shutdown in the government whatsoever, whether if it's a partial or a full shutdown. And here we go from Democrats. Republicans control all 3 branches of government. Democrats introduced 7 bills to fund TSA. Each one was blocked by Republicans. Well, yeah, because they had this giant list of ridiculous demands. And some of those demands include essentially, the way that they were wording these demands, that essentially ICE just can't do their jobs anymore. They can't really arrest anybody anymore, whether if they're here legally or illegally. They have to have a judicial warrant, which I guess according to Democrats, that a final order of removal just isn't good enough, even though it is clearly signed by a judge, an immigration judge. But no, they want an extra step to be taken to take it to yet another court for them to sign, a final order of removal. And that's a non-starter for Republicans. So the bills that they're introducing to fund TSA, it comes with a shitload of strings attached. And the simple basic gist of it is that back on the 14th of February, the DHS funding bill came up for a vote in the Senate. Democrats voted no, we don't want to fund it, and the end. It's that simple. That's exactly what happened. So this is the result of Democrats, shown to us from Democrats on the X platform. So it's kind of nice of them to show us what they're putting everybody through. Courtesy of Democrats, not Republicans. I mean, why the hell would you want to vote for a Democrat after this? Anybody waiting in this line? It just blows my mind that a sizable portion of these people probably are still going to vote for Democrats. Makes me wonder if they have any of these nonprofit, quote-unquote nonprofit advocates that are standing in line even though that they're not flying anywhere, just trying to steer conversations into the direction that, it's the Republicans' fault. Or no, this isn't because of any shutdown. It's just spring break. That's why it's so busy. It's spring break. Everybody's going on spring break this year. Yeah, but Democrats, I thought that the economy was in shambles. I thought the Trump administration destroyed the economy. I thought that it was just absolutely impossible to make a living these days. How the hell are so many people going on spring break if the economy's in shambles? Oh. Senator Mazie Hirono, I want to be crystal clear. Democrats support funding TSA, FEMA, and the Coast Guard. No, they don't, because otherwise they would have back on the 14th of February. In fact, we've tried to fund these agencies multiple times, but what we won't support is writing a blank check for ICE's unchecked lawless violence. Oh, so there it is.
The Homeland Security jurisdiction is over TSA, Coast Guard, and FEMA, and I want to make it very plain to everyone here that the Democrats on this committee, and in fact the Democrats in the Senate, support the funding of these agencies. But we do not support the funding of ICE as long as there are no guardrails.
I need a
around
soundboard.
their lawlessness.
I need a buzzer
Homeland Security-
soundboard. That would have been perfect for that moment. Senator Peter Welch probably would have another opportunity to use it. I believe we need to make reasonable reforms to ICE, like body cameras and real accountability. Well, the Department of Homeland Security has already cleared the air on this at least several times at this point. They are issuing body cameras to every agent. Now, at the time, when was this? At the time that that DHS was shut down, I don't think all agents had body cameras yet, but they had already been weeks in the process of providing body cameras to all agents. That would actually be something I can look up here in a minute to see if they've actually issued all agents body cameras yet. And if not, then they better get their asses in gear and do it, because they promised that they would. And I know the federal government runs slow. Things always run slow in the federal government. However, this should be a high priority issue, especially when they're dealing with all these leftist activists and obstructionists and rioters. You might want to get all that stuff on body camera, because they are inflicting, they're full-on committing assault in many cases, if not just obstructing in general. You might want to get all that stuff on body camera, federal agents. All I'm saying.
I am hearing from so many Vermonters who are incredibly upset about the TSA agents not being paid, and also the long lines at the airports around the country. I am in total agreement with you.
Oh,
and
bullshit.
it's why every time I've had an opportunity, I'm voting to pay TSA. So what's the problem?
Wait a minute, hold on a minute. He's a senator, right? Yeah, Senator Peter Welch. He's so full of shit. He hasn't agreed, or he hasn't voted to fund TSA a single time. The only Democrat, the only one, is John Fetterman. He is the only sole Democrat that has voted to fund the Department of Homeland Security. Not a single other Democrat. This dude's full of shit.
We have a dispute about ICE. You know, I do believe what happened in Minneapolis can never happen again. And we've got to have reforms like body cameras, like training.
Or how about toning down the political violent rhetoric and encouraging Democrats and far leftist activists and progressives to go out there and obstruct ICE constantly?
Same standards that apply to
Which is what Renee
departments
Good
all
and
around
Alex
the
Preddy
country.
did. They
President
obstructed
Trump
ICE.
disagrees.
Renee
So,
Good
you know
struck
what,
an
mind
agent
you,
with her vehicle.
You can decide who you agree
And he
with,
fired
me
at her,
or President
killing
Trump,
her.
on do we need ICE reforms. But why drag in TSA? That's a separate agency that has good people doing
Because you
important
Democrats are
work
scumbags, that's
for
why.
all of us. And that's why
Same reason why you
I am
shut
gonna
everybody down
continue
back in
my
the fall.
efforts to
Because of
bring legislation
bullshit.
to the floor, hopefully to get
We want to extend
unanimous
the Obamacare
approval
subsidies.
that we fund TSA.
Why? So you can take money from the taxpayers and then use it to pay for sky-high health insurance, using taxpayer money from the people that you're taking the taxpayer money from, and you're paying down artificially their premiums. Makes absolutely no sense. This like circular logic dumbassery. Whereas Obamacare, not a single year has it gone down in cost. They said that Obamacare was going to bring down insurance costs. Nope, it's only skyrocketed. And when they got rid of the subsidies, which is why Democrats shut down the government the first time, well, not the first time, but when they shut down the government in the fall, they wanted to extend those subsidies, the COVID subsidies, by the way, even though COVID's not even a thing anymore, so there's no reason to extend the subsidies. They just wanted them to, the monthly premiums to appear artificially low when they actually were not. Now, the reality is that Obamacare had been skyrocketing year after year when those 3-year subsidies were in place. And then once those expired, then the real cost of Obamacare had actually revealed itself to everybody who's on Obamacare. That's why everybody's health insurance premiums went up like crazy, because Obamacare has been failing us since the day it was implemented. U.S. Senator John Fetterman heading to vote, and I will remain the only Democrat that refuses to shut our government down. You hear that, Senator Peter Welch? You are an asshole because you are a liar. Pay TSA agents, reopen DHS, and he posts this from CNN US. Travelers face Friday rush and unpredictable airport wait times as TSA officers go unpaid. He usually doesn't link articles, I don't believe. Yeah, he doesn't link them. I didn't plan on reading this, but gridlock will happen next week. According to DOT Secretary Sean Duffy, Democrats can keep gaslighting, blaming Republicans, but people who wait in line for 5 hours, they talk to other strangers. And they do. They do, man. People talk to other people while they're waiting in line forever. And the people that they're talking to, maybe they might know what's going on, and then they're going to inform the people around them that, Democrats did this, just like they did back in the fall. If you just so happen to have traveled back during that 40-day period when the government was shut down last time, we were dealing with long lines back then, too. Speaker Mike Johnson, reminder, Democrats are again putting illegal aliens ahead of the American people. For 35 days and counting, they've blocked paychecks for TSA, FEMA, and other law enforcement at DHS to reopen the border. And just this week, Democrats have also voted to let criminal illegal aliens who defrauded taxpayers stay in our communities, give illegal immigrants the right to physically harm American service dogs serving alongside law enforcement. It's despicable and dangerous, but the Democrats keep choosing to hurt the American people so they can help criminal illegal aliens. Yeah, because that's what they are these days. They put their party above country because they're a bunch of communists now. They want to import tons and tons of people that will eventually be voting in our elections because they know if they just put them in on the welfare state that they tend to vote Democrat because it's the Democrats who promise free money all the time. And from Rapid Response 47, Democrats' DHS shutdown enters 35th day as airports plunge into chaos. Frontline workers suffer. So this came out just a few hours ago as of this recording on whitehouse.gov as radical left Democrats force the Department of Homeland Security shutdown into its 35th day. Everyday Americans are bearing the cost. More than 100,000 DHS employees, including 50,000 TSA officers, are working without paychecks for the third time in 6 months, leading to skyrocketing resignations and massive callouts that have crippled airports across the country. Also, not just the White House, but other politicians, they're not realizing the fact that this is going to lead to a huge decline in people even being remotely interested in applying to be a TSA agent. Like, nobody's going to want to be a TSA agent anymore because you're going to have to deal with this shit. The only people who may be fit for the job are those who know how to save money, those who live frugal, those who don't take loans out for every freaking thing. And if they can, if they're responsible enough to save up like a 6-month nest egg to pay off their bills when they have to go through the shit, then yeah, there you go. That would be a good TSA agent. But yeah, for everybody else, in the real world, like how many people actually do that who make $50,000 a year or less? It's probably like 10% or maybe 15% of Americans live frugal enough to actually save money. Americans are suffering from Democrats' continued refusal to fund DHS. I feel bad for the workers. They need to be paid, said travelers at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, where hours-long lines snaked through the concourse after more than 1/3 of TSA officers called out. And of course, I'm assuming that's the video that we saw with the man, the wife, and their 4 kids. And I don't think that the CNN dude mentioned that 1/3 of TSA officers called out at Atlanta. Yeah, dude, I cannot believe that it's not like a freaking 10-hour line, honestly. We were going to go on 11, but we rebooked to 4:30. We got here 3.5 hours early, said a frustrated traveler at George Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston, where lines snaked around down to the floor due to staffing shortages. Unreal, longest TSA line I've been in, and I travel every week, said a traveler at LaGuardia Airport in New York City, where even the TSA pre-check line stretched to the parking garage, the freaking parking garage. It's so overwhelming, the TSA line was out the door and around the building outside, said a traveler at Philadelphia International Airport, where major checkpoints have been shut down due to ongoing staffing shortages. Democrats' damage extends well beyond airports, critical DHS missions, including law enforcement operations, FEMA, disaster response, also cybersecurity, which is kind of important, especially with this whole Iran conflict. And we'll get to that in a little bit. The FBI, they shut down a whole bunch of Iran websites where they were spreading their terrorism ideology. There were some hacking organizations that they shut down. They actually shut down quite a bit. And other key functions are being strained by unpaid workers, limited resources, and dangerous staffing shortfalls. The Trump administration and Republicans in Congress have repeatedly negotiated in good faith, yet Democrats continue to hold DHS hostage, insisting on radical, unserious demands that shield illegal aliens at the expense of American citizens and frontline workers. Enough is enough. Radical left Democrats who bragged about making people hurt must immediately cease their partisan games, stop weaponizing national security for political gain, and join Republicans in passing full funding for DHS. And we're going to rock and roll down to Scott Pressler. Republican senators, hear me out. Since Democrats shut down the Department of Homeland Security, TSA agents have been working without pay for over a month and have already missed their first full paycheck. Next one they're going to be missing next Friday. And if that wasn't bad enough, we've had 4 radical Islamic terrorist attacks on our homeland since this Democrat DHS shutdown. Here's my proposition. The Senate is supposed to go on recess from March 30th until April 10th. Well, la-di-da. Senate Majority Leader Thune banned the entire Republican Senate caucus together and do not go on recess. Yeah, that is definitely not happening. There is no way that would happen. I would almost make a Vegas bet on that. If Polymark has taken bets on it, I'd probably dump my whole savings in the fact that they are not going to be canceling this recess because Republicans never do. Do not go home until the Department of Homeland Security is fully funded. Show the American people that you, the adults in the room and the leading party, is willing to forego time with your families during Easter. Yeah, he's right, dude. This would be a genius move if they did that. And if they went to the cameras every single day, too. To put the well-being, safety, and security of the nation first. When Democrat senators go home for a paid vacation while TSA agents can't even pay rent, voters will be forced to realize the Democrat Party truly doesn't care about workers or our homeland safety. And they should do exactly that. I could not agree with Scott Presler more. If Republican senators stayed behind in Washington, I know it would suck to not spend the time with your family or locally so you can shake hands with your constituents for a week or two. Stay in Washington, D.C., and just go to the cameras every day. Every single one, every Republican senator should be standing in front of the same cameras all together and informing them that we're here. We're here to work out a deal to try to get our TSA agents paid because we actually care about them. Where are the Democrats? Camera crew, y'all can go try to find them if you want. I mean, we would love to get some work done, but if you do happen to see a Democrat anywhere here in D.C., and I guarantee you won't, but if you do, just let them know that we're here on the Senate floor trying to get this shit done. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think Republicans are going to go home too. If you do this, the Republican Senate will gain the support of tens of millions, and ultimately we will force the Democrats to reopen the very government entity they shut down. So again, consider making a huge, powerful statement. By not leaving Washington, D.C. until the Department of Homeland Security is fully funded, we will have your backs. And he CC'd Leader John Thune, 10,000 likes. Not sure if Leader John Thune's going to see that. Frankly, I don't even know if he even gets on the X platform. I think for most of these politicians, they just have their staffers, manage their socials for them. And he follows that up with another one. If I were a United States senator, I would forego my time with family during Easter and not go home until the Department of Homeland Security is fully funded. I would absolutely sacrifice my personal life to ensure that unpaid TSA agents finally get the pay they deserve. And I think Scott Presler I think he actually does imagine himself in their shoes, and he probably takes offense to it. I would. Just imagining that these people are not getting paid. I think most Americans just can't fathom that. Going to work for 40 hours a week and just simply not getting paid. It's that simple. You work for 2 weeks and your paycheck. And what makes it an even bigger slap in the face is that they either get paper checks or they'll get their automated paychecks deposited into their bank account, and it actually shows $0.00. It's actually printed out. Of course it is, because they get their direct deposit every 2 weeks, or they will have their statement mailed to them every 2 weeks, and it literally says $0.00. Talk about adding insult to injury. Nick Sordor breaking. Republican senators just attempted to call Democrats bluff and attempted to pass only the voter ID portion of the Save America Act. So we're on the Save America Act now. We're moving on past the whole TSA and DHS shutdown. We're moving on to the next dire emergency. But Democrats blocked it. That's why we have to go all in. They will not pass just voter ID regardless of what they say, because Democrats lie.
Madam President, showing a photo ID is common sense. The American people support it by an 80-20 margin.
You know what? Just to get ahead of this, everybody's talking about how everybody agrees with voter ID. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt keeps saying that every day, and she's been posting the polling numbers showing that Americans overwhelmingly are in support of voter ID. This isn't solely voter ID. This is also proving that citizens only are voting in our elections. And I think they should run polls, and I think Republicans need to remind the public of that as well, that it's not just the voter ID that we're pushing for. We're also insisting that only American citizens vote. And I bet if they would run polls like that, which I'm sure they have, I'm sure they've run polls like that. It's just that it seems like our federal officials are not interested in sharing those numbers. They're just interested in sharing us the voter ID numbers. They should be sharing the other one too. The fact that the vast majority of Americans surely are in favor of only American citizens voting. It's probably even higher than the voter ID number.
For more than a decade and a half, it is possible to make it both easy to vote and hard to cheat, and we should make that a national standard with a photo ID law that is easy to implement and is proven
very easy.
Effective.
Everybody has a birth certificate issued
Passing voter
since
ID
the freaking
requirements
1800s.
is common sense, and passing this provision that I offer tonight, that's part of the Save America Act, is right for election integrity, and it's the right thing to do for voter confidence, and I urge a yes vote.
I want to thank my friend and distinguished colleague, the senator from Ohio.
There's my senator, Rick Scott.
For his insights on this.
I don't like him very much.
One of
but
many true talents.
He's my Republican senator.
He's particularly well qualified in this area, given his experience in the state of Ohio. with mastering the election laws.
Wasn't
of that
crazy
state
about his days
and
as
the
governor.
Federal election laws that overlap with state election laws. I'm not sure there's anyone in the Senate currently or who has ever served here who has a greater knowledge of these laws and the way that they intersect. For the same reasons articulated by the senator from Ohio, I think this is an exceptionally good idea. It's not every bill where it makes sense to separate out a provision, try to pass that provision on its own, separate from the rest of the text of the bill. But this is one of those instances where it makes sense. Now, don't get me wrong, neither I nor the senator from Ohio are suggesting that we still don't need the rest of the Save America Act. That's not our point. The point is that these are separately divisible, such that they could be enacted separately. And insofar as there is a greater degree of consensus with regard to the voter ID component of the Save America Act than there are with regard to the citizenship components, it makes sense for us to get this done now. Let's pass it. Let's pass it right now. Let's pass it by unanimous consent. Let's make this law, and then we can proceed back to deal with the rest of the issues within the Save America Act. This is what progress looks like. This is what consensus building looks like. And I thank my friend and colleague from Ohio for raising this. Look, no matter how you feel about the rest of the provisions of the bill, it's not too much to ask somebody to just show who they are when they show up on voting day. That provision is very simple. Let's get this passed. Let's get it done right now.
Madam President.
Yeah, and then, of course, check them off the list. So that way they don't vote more than once. Because if you change your address and they still send a ballot to your previous address and your new address, chances are you're not at the same precinct that you were before, because the precincts are, they only cover a pretty small area, like just a neighborhood. Because I don't know how it is in every state. I just know where I live, we've got hundreds of precincts in my county, which happens to be the smallest county in the state, but it's also the most densely populated county also. And, just quick remark to Senator Rick Scott. He's been doing a good job as senator. I mean, I'm not displeased with his job as senator. I just didn't really like him as governor back when he was the governor. So anyway, yeah. By the way, there needs to be a Senate rule where when they're debating, every single senator must be present, because I bet that most senators are not even in the room. I bet most of them are not even there. It sounds dead silent in there. There's probably 80% of those seats are just empty. It'd be nice if C-SPAN or whoever the hell is filming this would have panned the camera around and shown us all those empty seats, because I bet there's a lot of empty seats in there. I just got a feeling that it ain't full. All right, Senate Democrats need to read the bill from Senator Mike Lee. They refuse and instead make arguments against provisions of the Save America Act that do not exist. This is one of them, and we'll have a look at this.
It requires every voter to dig through their basement, go up into their attic, and try to find their birth certificate, right? Find their passport, just so they can register to vote.
So what, dude? You should have it in your possession anyway. I think most Americans, most responsible Americans, and look, if you're a registered voter, chances are you're probably a responsible American in some way, shape, or form. You've probably got a box somewhere, or a file box. I've got a file box, and it has all of my pertinent documents. It's got the title of my car. It's got my birth certificate. It's got all of the receipts that I've had maintaining my vehicle, and any medical bills that I've had or over the years. Also the ID numbers for my cat's microchips and adoption papers, my W-2s, the serial numbers to my firearms, important documents. Responsible adults, they receive important documents on a regular basis. Your tax documents, for example, you're probably going to keep them where you keep, your birth certificate, your passport, your other documents. You probably don't keep it up in the top of your attic, just buried underneath a pile of other nonsense that you haven't touched in 30 years. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. And they know damn well they're just being stupid. All right, so let's see. I don't know if this is going to be the same clip. It could be. It's 16 seconds, but let's see. Senator John Hickenlooper lies that the Save America Act will force all Americans to re-register to vote. I think it might be.
It requires every voter to dig through their basement, go up into their...
Yeah, whatever, dude. Fucking moron. Well, if you can't find your birth certificate, it's very easy to obtain it. I've already said it repeatedly on here. You can go to, I think it's VitalCheck, VITALCHEK, which handles birth certificates for, I think it's at least 45 states in the country. And you could just get your birth certificate right there online. They actually make it very easy. I walked through it right here on the Swamp a couple of weeks ago. I went to the website and went through the whole thing, and it was really quite simple. Or you could You could go to Google. You could say, I live in the state of blank. How do I get my birth certificate? And Google makes it very easy, especially now that Google's got the whole AI thing now with Gemini. It actually explains it in very simple terms, how you can get your birth certificate no matter what state you live in. Gunther Eagleman, boom, Senator Katie Britt just nailed it from the Senate floor. Perfect mic drop on Democrat hypocrisy. Let's have a look. Let's see if she did.
Well, these gentlemen have covered much of what we need to talk about today, but I want to start by thanking Senator Lee. So Senator Lee got in there on this issue, and he has made sure that people paid attention. This isn't a Republican issue. This is an American issue.
American.
When you look at the polling,
Democrats aren't
it
Americans.
Is wildly
They're Democrats
popular
now.
Amongst Republicans, amongst independents, and amongst Democrats. When you see something like that, I think it's incumbent upon us to actually do something on something like that. And that's exactly what Senator Lee has done with the Save America Act. And today we talk about the heart of that. I appreciate Senator Husted and his work as Secretary of State. He knows this issue front and back. He talked about it, but we want to make sure Americans have faith in their elections. We want to make sure that they are free, fair, and secure.
Simple.
If Americans don't have faith, it undermines the very pillars that hold up our democracy. And we know the best way to do that is to require ID. We do it in the great state of Alabama. And we also say, hey, if
we
for
do in
some
the free
reason
state of Florida, too.
You can't come to us, we'll come to you. We're going to make sure that you have one because we also understand that it is fundamental to actually achieving the American dream. So for many of my colleagues, they have said that this is unattainable for certain segments of the population or certain people. I find that wildly offensive.
Yes, retarded.
And I am here
Everybody
today
knows
to
where
say
their birth
that if
certificate
that
is
is your argument,
and how to get it.
Let's drill down on that. Because you can't rent a home, you can't go to work, you can't shovel snow in New York City without an ID, and you can't get into John Ossoff's campaign event.
Well, look, if you don't have an ID, if you don't know how to get your birth certificate, then you sure as hell aren't responsible enough to be voting for the future direction of our country. Because anybody who's voting, you should have a pretty well-rounded idea as to the people or person that you believe in to vote for. And it's just as simple as that. I mean, so many people who are voting, they frankly don't really have any business voting because they have no idea who they're voting for. Not really. They might be able to read the name, but they don't know who's behind the name.
So I'm pretty sure as we look to try to achieve the American dream, whether that's getting insurance, whether that's getting a car, whether that's signing your kid up for school, you need an ID. So if my colleagues continue to say that
Be an
there's
adult.
certain segments of the population that can't get one, why don't we deal with that? Because I want every American, regardless of their zip code, regardless of their background, regardless of their state, to be able to achieve the American dream, and without simple identification, they can't do that. But let's secure our election.
Look, I've put forward this idea that nobody else has brought up, that the states, they should waive the fees to obtain a birth certificate for this year until Election Day. Because anybody who's going to go get their birth certificate for 2026, they're probably going to go with regard to getting their voter ID. And every state should waive the fees involved with getting a birth certificate. Or at a minimum, anybody who makes less than $30,000 a year or makes less than $50,000 a year, just waive the fee. And maybe even put it into this bill that perhaps the federal government will just reimburse that state for that fee.
Let's do it now. When you go pick up your ballot, it'll still be there if you have to show your ID before you get it. And I am excited to hear so many of my Democratic colleagues come to the table and say they're for this too. I look forward to watching them follow through with that on the Senate floor. This is the same party that you remember made us have vaccine passports to go out to eat during COVID, and has done so much more infringing on our individual rights. I certainly look forward to them helping to protect one of the most important ones, and that's the right to vote. So thank you for your leadership on this, Senator Lee. I say let's get this done. We're certainly not going to quit until we do.
Very well said. She did say that very well. And Democrats, they say that, well, you can't use a driver's license when you go and vote, and that's not fair. Well, because you're giving driver's licenses to illegal immigrants in these blue states. Well, you can't even use your military ID as a valid form of ID in order to go vote? Yeah, because you don't have to be an American citizen to join the military. All right, Senator Dick Durbin, the president claims that the Save America Act is necessary to stop the scourge of non-citizen voting. So I looked at the data. The Bipartisan Policy Center analyzed the conservative Heritage Foundation's election fraud database and found only 77 cases of non-citizens successfully casting ballots in American elections over 24 years. Well, it's probably because the Heritage Foundation, they probably don't have access to the voter rolls in all blue states, because not even the federal government has access to the voter rolls in all blue states. That's why the Heritage Foundation only found 77 cases. If you gave them full access to every voter roll database in every single blue state, I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of zeros after that 77.
And cases of non-citizens voting are extremely rare. In 2024, the Bipartisan Policy Center decided to figure out how frequently we encounter voter fraud in American elections.
Well, which is it, bipartisan or is it
Conservative
conservative?
Heritage Foundation election fraud database found in the period 1999 to 2023, 24 years, how many cases do you think they found of voter fraud? Incidents where non-citizens successfully cast ballots. Out of the millions and millions of votes that were cast, they found exactly 77.
And those 77 people were probably busted by the feds, and they were probably convicted. That's probably the only way that they were able to find 77 people. Like I said, if they opened up the voter rolls, they would probably find hundreds of thousands per state, maybe even more than that.
In a 24-year period, 77.
Of course, he doesn't want to talk about that. He doesn't want to bring any of that up. All right, Elon Musk, he says nailed it. And Logan Hall says, Democrats, LOL, if we'd ever come to power again, we are going to flood the country with another 100 million illegals and throw you all in prison. Senate GOP, guys, we can't break with our precious norms and procedures and pass voter ID. And AF Post Democratic Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker speaks about a Democratic Project 2029, in which members of the current Trump administration, along with federal agents, will be criminally and civilly prosecuted. Whatever it is that we can do, it may be that you cannot criminally prosecute somebody, but you can go after them civilly. So that's what they plan on doing for the rest of Trump's life, is just to drag him into a civil court over and over again forever. Yeah, probably.
What does a Project 2029 agenda look like?
Holy shit, sorry.
For you?
I don't think you can speak of it in shorthand, but I'll just say a couple of things that I think are absolutely necessary. One is we've got to restore the rule of law.
We're going to go on full-on communism.
Who've broken the law.
We're going to persecute our political rivals.
This administration, when we get a new one, the people in this administration who've broken the law and federal agents who've broken the law need to be held accountable.
And that,
well, tell us what laws those are.
Criminally prosecuted.
Of course, they're not going to go over that. Of course, I mean, I only have 41 seconds in this video. I guarantee if you watch this interview in its entirety, give us one law that Trump's broken. Give us one law that anybody in the Trump administration's broken. And if you have ironclad proof, or if you have enough evidence to strongly suggest that a law was broken, you're not going to find a whole lot of Republicans who are going to probably push back against that. I, for one, not that I'm a Republican, but I wouldn't push back against it if you've got actual proof that somebody in the Trump administration broke the law. I mean, like Howard Lutnick, for instance, there's some questions that he needs to answer with regard to his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He doesn't want to answer any of those questions. I think he should. I think they should actually bring him in and have him answer some questions, because there's unanswered questions with him living right next door to Jeffrey Epstein. And he said, I believe he said under oath that, I never talked to him. We never talked at all, which is kind of odd, being your next door neighbor. You never talk to your next door neighbor.
Criminally prosecuted, civilly prosecuted, whatever it is that we can do, right? It may be that you can't criminally prosecute somebody, but that you can go after them civilly.
Oh, good grief. So we can't go after them criminally, even though we fully intend to. But if that falls through, then, we're just going to just tie them up in court forever. We're going to try to bankrupt Trump by just dragging him into court over and over and over again forever. Okay, good luck with that. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they tried it. Of course they're going to try it. Elon Musk, one more. We don't live in a democracy if our federal leader, or if our elected leaders fail to implement the will of the people. Interactive polls. CBS News poll, do you favor or oppose requiring people to show valid photo ID before they are permitted to vote? 80% says they favor it, 20% oppose it. Democrats age 65, 35, I assume that's, 65 yes, 35 no. That's probably what it is, right? Yeah, in favor and oppose. I thought that might have been an age group, but no, I believe that's percentages. So plus 30, GOP 95 to 5, plus 90, Indy, 79-21 plus 58. White, 80-20 plus 60. Black, 80-20 plus 60, the same. Hispanic, 77-23 plus 55. And again, that's YouGov, requiring a valid photo ID to vote. And again, I think they should also pose that question. Do you believe only American citizens should be voting in our federal elections? It's probably going to be a very similar number, if not even higher. All right, so let's move on to the president on the Iranian regime. We've been hitting them awfully hard. I don't know if that you can possibly get hit harder. These are thugs and animals and horrible people, but I'm not surprised. They executed 3 young people just for protesting.
Well, we've been hitting them awfully hard. I mean, I don't know if you can possibly get hit harder, but these are thugs and animals and horrible people. But you can't hit anybody harder than we've hit them. But I'm not surprised. They executed 3 young people for protesting.
Well, I would kind of push back a little and say you could certainly hit them way harder, just not with the laser precision that we've been hitting them. With striking over 7,000, we're probably knocking on 8,000 targets at this point that we've successfully hit. It's over 7,000, no doubt about that, because Central Command had confirmed that. But there is a way that you can go after them more devastatingly, and that would be just carpet bombing everything, just like leveling all kinds of shit, which I don't advocate doing at all because we want the Iranian people to take back their country. It's kind of hard to do that when you just start killing literally everybody. It's not something we should be doing, but yeah, President Trump's probably right. As far as our tactical precision strikes that we've been engaged with over the last 21 days, then I probably can't get much better than that. So the president on opening the Strait of Hormuz, it's a long quote, so we'll just hear him say it here in the video.
Opening the Strait of Hormuz is a simple...
It's Marco Rubio behind him, right?
Very
Secretary
simple.
of State.
Yeah, but what did you mean by that?
It's a simple military maneuver. It's relatively safe, but you need a lot of help in the sense of you need ships, you need volume.
Well, you need other countries to be there.
NATO could help us,
just to
but
show
they
a force.
so far haven't had the courage to do so, and others could help us, but we don't use it. At a certain point, it'll open itself at a certain point. But we've defeated the enemy, and they are an enemy. They're a sick
Yeah, and he's
group
right.
of
We don't
people.
use oil from the Strait of
The
Hormuz.
leadership is gone. The Navy is gone. The Air Force is gone. The anti-aircraft equipment that they have, the radar they have, is all gone. Everything's gone. The strait itself, the actual strait, how are you? The strait itself is... we're doing a good job, but it would be nice if the countries, including China, if the countries that use it, China uses it 90% of their energy.
Yeah.
Japan is
Lot.
95% of the energy. It would be nice if those countries would get involved.
Yeah, in China, they're not going to get involved because, from what I've read, and I believe that I've shown it here on the Swamp, I think even this week, that China and Iran, they've already got a deal. They've had a long-term deal already with regard to oil, and Iran's already said that China can pass through freely, and we're not going to attack China because we do business with China already. We already have for years, so there's no sense in that for China to show up. Plus, could you imagine if China sends a bunch of battleships and like a whole fleet of ships into the Strait of Hormuz where the United States is? Can you see where that could get a little murky? Like that might get a little awkward after a while. And with regard to France, like less than 1% of their oil comes from the Strait of Hormuz, just like the United States. Less than 1% of our oil comes from the Strait of Hormuz. So they don't really have any interest as far as oil is concerned in the Strait of Hormuz, so I can't entirely blame them for not wanting to send anything down there, other than the fact that they are a NATO country, and the United States pays 2/3 of NATO, and we have since probably the very beginning. So I would say just on that, enough would be an obligation for them to show up if we're asking them to show up. It's the least they could do with all the financial funding that we've provided them through NATO. And I believe the UK, like they've shown up to some extent. I think they've offered some defensive forces in some way or another, like some ships. And I think they said that they had planes up in the air. But I think that they're mainly just protecting their own interests. And the other European countries, they don't really get a whole lot of oil from the Strait of Hormuz either. However, I think Japan gets like 95% of their oil from the Strait of Hormuz. Not sure how big of a fleet of ships that they have with the whole, they're not allowed to have an offensive military after the whole World War II thing happened. The same with South Korea. South Korea, they've got like 90% of their oil that comes from the Strait of Hormuz. But again, I don't know what South Korea's navy's like. Do they have a giant navy? I honestly don't know. President Trump, I think NATO's gone down a long way because they haven't. They should be helping with the strait. So we'll hear about that.
Has asked for you to reconsider the American bases in Spain, in Germany after what they have done in the Strait of Hormuz? What's your take?
Well, it deserves. He's right about asking that, and I think NATO's gone down a long way because they haven't. I mean, they should be helping with the Strait. They get much of their energy from the Strait of Hormuz.
They should be helping because we asked them to.
If Lindsey Graham said that, and don't forget, he was the big NATO guy for a while, and now he's not. And a lot of senators and congressmen,
Well, it's because you're not.
They're very upset with the fact that NATO has done nothing.
I think Lindsey Graham at this point is just taking an approach that anything Trump says, I'll stand 100% behind. Rapid Response 47, this is from President Trump's Truth Social account, and he says, without the USA, NATO is a paper tiger. They didn't want to join the fight to stop a nuclear-powered Iran. Now, that fight is militarily won, with very little danger for them. They complain about the high oil prices they are forced to pay, but don't want to help open the Strait of Hormuz, a simple military maneuver that is the single reason for the high oil prices. So easy for them to do with so little risk. Cowards, and we will remember President Donald J. Trump. And that also raises a whole nother point that just shows how ignorant I am when it comes to like geopolitical affairs and oil, the petrodollar, and just global prices in general. Even though that France only gets 1 or less of a percentage of their oil from the Strait of Hormuz, it's still 20% of all the world's supply of oil is coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. And when that's disrupted, that's going to cause oil prices to go up for everybody. So that alone would be a good enough reason for at least somebody to show up whenever they're called upon to do so. Secretary Burgum, and he says the president's energy dominant strategy is built for exactly this moment, wanting to increase supply here domestically and with our existing allies or new allies, get more supply in the market. I have a feeling you might be alluding to Venezuela, maybe?
President Trump's energy dominance strategy is built for exactly this moment. President Trump wanting to increase supply here domestically and with our existing allies or new allies like Venezuela, where I was about 10 days ago, get more supply in the market and be in a position where we can be not just energy independent, but energy dominant, where we can sell energy to our friends and allies so they don't have to be reliant on our adversaries, like the example that the senator's giving. Any Democrat right now that's complaining about gas prices, they were completely silent when gas prices were over $5 during the Biden administration, and they were above $5 because of a policy
we all remember that.
of energy subtraction versus energy addition. The Biden administration was restricting the supply.
They were,
of
man.
Fuels,
They were shutting down pipelines.
trying to drive towards an all-electric vision of the world. And we know that all that did was increase taxpayer subsidies, reduce reliability, and increase dependence on foreign sources of energy. President Trump, 180 degrees different. American-made U.S. energy, affordability for Americans, and energy security, and then the ability right now for the U.S. to be in a position where we've got the lowest energy prices in the world right now because of President Trump.
Hell yeah. It absolutely is thanks to Trump. And also, soon to be thanks to Venezuela as well, which you can't thank Venezuela without thanking Trump first. Rapid Response 47, we got one more from President Trump. We are getting, here, let me go back because this is too small. All right, here we go. We are getting very close to meeting our objectives as we consider winding down our great military efforts in the Middle East with respect to the terrorist regime of Iran. So we might actually be winding down this after all. It may not be a multi-year quagmire that we might be dealing with. Number 1, completely degrading Iranian missile capability, launchers, and everything else pertaining to them. Number 2, destroying Iran's defense industrial base. And number 3, eliminating their Navy and Air Force, including anti-aircraft weaponry. Number 4, never allowing Iran to get even close to nuclear capability and always being in a position where the USA can quickly and powerfully react to such a situation should it take place. Number 5, protecting at the highest level our Middle Eastern allies, including Israel, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Kuwait, and others. The Hormuz Strait will have to be guarded and policed as necessary by other nations who use it. The United States does not. If asked, we will help these countries in their Hormuz efforts, but it shouldn't be necessary once Iran's threat is eradicated. Importantly, it will be an easy military operation for them. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And that was my big hang up when it comes to this whole Iranian conflict. If we just fuck shit up and leave, like Iran has just been militarily obliterated and then we just pack up and leave, well, what if they still have a way to rebuild to some extent what they had in the first place, even though I'm sure it would take years and years for them to get back to the point where they were before Operation Epic Fury started. However, I showed a video yesterday which wasn't confirmed, but it suggested that China was trucking in drones and munitions and military supplies, and they were hiding those supplies underneath food aid. and humanitarian aid. And there were a lot of trucks that they showed going in. So once we leave, it's going to be up to the neighboring countries to have to deal with the potential fallout. However, if we totally obliterate everything in Iran militarily, then yeah, it would probably be very limited at best when it comes to strikes coming out of Iran. But at least he said that if needed, if they ask us, we'll go over there and we'll take care of business as long as it doesn't take a hell of a long time. Breaking Bahrain. Oh, this is open source intel, by the way, from 6 hours ago. Britain has given the United States the green light to use RAF Fairford and Diego Garcia to carry out raids on Iranian missile strikes that are attacking ships in the Strait of Hormuz, the Times reported on Friday. And do they have the article or do they not? No, I don't think they do. So anyway, the Times, New York Times, I don't know. Anyway, so that's what they were saying at open source intel. This is from BRICS News. Just in, the U.S. is making preparations to deploy ground forces into Iran. CBS reports. Oh, well, that's what CBS says. But President Trump, he's saying the opposite. He's saying that we're winding things down. We might be packing up and going home pretty soon. So, not so sure if I totally believe them, and it'd sure be nice if they link the article, but I'll try to find it. All right, here we go. From CBS News, Trump administration making heavy preparations for the potential use of ground troops in Iran. Let me back that up a little bit. So this is updated today, March 20th. Pentagon officials have made detailed preparations for deploying U.S. ground forces into Iran. Multiple sources briefed on the discussions told CBS News. Senior military commanders have submitted specific requests aimed at preparing for such an option as President Trump waves moves in the U.S.-Israel-led conflict with Iran. The sources said, well, dude, it's always going to be somewhere in their plans. It might be Plan D, Plan C, maybe Plan X, or whatever it is. That's always going to be a possibility, especially when you've got an operation of this size happening. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. But anyway, it says Mr. Trump has been deliberating whether to position ground forces in the region, sources said, on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. Oh, okay, so they're just leaking information then. Isn't that illegal to be doing that, to speak to the press when it concerns classified, if not top secret matters? It was unclear under what circumstances he would authorize the use of troops on the ground. And this is where I get really irritated because for all we know, CBS is 100% full of shit. This is just clickbait. They're desperate for money. Nobody's watching them anymore. So they just use the term anonymous or anonymity to publish these sensational, ridiculous articles that may have no basis in reality at all. Or maybe it does. I don't know. Anyway, so no, I'm not putting troops anywhere, he told reporters in the Oval Office on Thursday, yesterday, when asked about ground troops, but quickly added, if I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you. Officials at the U.S. Central Command referred questions from CBS News to the White House and the Pentagon. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said in a statement, it's the job of the Pentagon to make preparations in order to give the Commander-in-Chief maximum optionality. It does not mean the President has made a decision, and as the President said in the Oval Office yesterday, he is not planning to send ground troops anywhere at this time. The military has also held meetings to prepare for how to handle the possible detention of Iranian soldiers and paramilitary operatives if the President decides to put American boots on the ground, including where the Iranians would be sent, two sources said. The U.S. is preparing to deploy elements of the 82nd Airborne Division into the Middle East region. The planning involves the Army's Global Response Force and the Marine Corps Marine Expeditionary Unit. Thousands of Marines are being moved now to the Middle East. 3 warships and about 2,200 Marines from an expeditionary unit departed California earlier this week, according to 2 U.S. officials. It was the second such Marine unit sent since the war began, and it could be a few weeks before it's in place. The first was sent from the Pacific and is still making its way into the region. The movements underscore the Pentagon's effort to expand military operations available to the president, even as administration officials publicly declined to discuss potential next steps. And I do remember reading, I think it might have been late last week or early this week, that up to 5,000 U.S. troops are being deployed to the region. Not to Iran specifically. They were bringing additional military personnel into the region. And I think that the government confirmed that. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if it was the Pentagon or the White House or who did, but I want to say that was confirmed. But not the whole boots on the ground thing. They just needed more military support. I don't know exactly for what. I'm sure they probably didn't elaborate on that. And I got one more from BRICS News. Just in, President Putin said Russia will stop providing intelligence to Iran only if the U.S. halts support for Ukraine. And I'm sure they didn't link an article to that, but what else is there to learn? I mean, it's pretty much pretty much all we really need to know. That, okay, well, if you stop supporting Ukraine, then we'll stop providing intelligence. If that's even true, and if even that's even true. CBI Cyber Division. Iranian cyber actors are using Telegram as command and control C2 infrastructure to push malware, targeting Iranian dissidents and opposition groups around the world, resulting in data leaks and reputational harm. Read the FBI's new advisory on tactics used by Iranian intelligence and mitigation strategies to reduce the risk of compromise. And it's a long PDF. Well, not super long. It's 6 pages. And let me just take a quick look here at the summary. So this is the government of Iran cyber actors deploy Telegram C2 to push malware to identified targets. Actually, I'm going to bring this up full screen. Yeah, there we go. That's better. All right, so the Federal Bureau of Investigation is releasing this flash to disseminate information on malicious cyber activity conducted by actors on behalf of the government of Iran Ministry of Intelligence and Security, MOIS. Specifically, MOIS cyber actors are responsible for using Telegram as a command and control C2 infrastructure to push malware targeting Iranian dissidents, journalists opposed to Iran also, and other opposition groups around the world. This malware resulted in intelligence collection, data leaks, and reputational harm against the targeted parties. The FBI is releasing this information to maximize awareness of malicious Iranian cyber activity and provide mitigation strategies to reduce the risk of compromise. Due to the elevated geopolitical climate of the Middle East and current conflict, the FBI is highlighting this MOIS cyber activity. The FBI assessed MOIS cyber actors are responsible for using Telegram as a C2 infrastructure to push malware targeting Iranian dissidents, journalists opposed to Iran, and other oppositional groups around the world. This flash warns network defenders and the public of continued malicious cyber activity by Iran MOIS cyber actors and outlines the tactics, the techniques, and the procedures, TTPs, used in this malware campaign. And as always, I'll have that linked below. And then I've got to follow up with the FBI. FBI Cyber Division. The FBI seized multiple domains linked to Iranian intelligence that were actively used to facilitate cyber attacks, post stolen data, and call for the killing of regime dissidents and U.S. residents. The FBI and the Justice Department will continue to defend the homeland by disrupting Iranian hacking and repression schemes that target dissidents and impact Americans. Iran thought they could hide behind fake websites and keyboard threats to terrorize Americans and silence dissidents. We took down 4 of their operations pillars, and we're not done. This FBI will hunt down every actor behind these cowardly death threats and cyber attacks and will bring the full force of American law enforcement down on them. FBI Director Kash Patel. And I will drop that link as well. Justice Department disrupts Iranian cyber-enabled psychological operations. Court-authorized domain seizure removes 4 websites facilitating the Islamic Republic of Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security's hacking efforts tied to psychological operations and transnational repression. All right, what's up next? Catherine Clark, with Catherine Clark, who is a Democrat, with $200 billion. We could extend the ACA tax credits for almost 7 years. Yeah, because that has totally worked. Just dump more money into a failing system. We could feed 42 million hungry Americans with SNAP, even though, isn't it true that the average poor person in America is fatter than the average rich person? Something like that. Lower grocery and gas costs, but Republicans would rather spend it on Trump's reckless war. And I believe I dropped an image, didn't I? Okay, yeah, so check this out. The Biden administration spent over $235 billion on erroneous payments in 2023 alone. And this is a simple Google search. How much did the Biden administration spend that is considered wasteful spending? Reports suggest the Biden administration has overseen hundreds of billions in wasteful or improper spending, including $235.7 billion in erroneous payments in 2023 alone. And also over $2 trillion via executive actions such as student loan bailouts. Other cited waste includes misused American Rescue Plan funds, such as checks to prisoners and foreign entities. So when Democrats are crying about how the Trump administration wants $200 billion to be used for the Iran conflict, and then they throw out nonsense like this, just remember the Biden administration, they were in many ways much worse than anything, at least in my opinion, that the Trump administration has done financially. All right, so breaking, the Pentagon seeks $200 billion in additional funds for the Iran war, AP source says. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they plan on remaining in Iran for $200 billion worth of conflict. It may just simply mean that the military may have not fully exhausted our military supply, but I'm sure that we've probably dipped into it by a sizable amount, given that we've taken out over 7,000 targets. Much of this money, I'm assuming, would be used to replenish what we have used in the conflict in Iran. Just my opinion. From Washington, the Pentagon is seeking $200 billion in additional funds for the Iran war, a sizable amount that is certain to be met with questions from Congress, which would need to approve any new money. Well, I don't know why they wouldn't. I mean, Republicans, they control the House, and they don't technically, they have a majority in the Senate. Doesn't mean that they control the Senate, because you need 60 votes to pass anything in the Senate, for the most part. The department sent the request to the White House, according to a senior administration official who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss the private information. Asked about the figure at a press conference Thursday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth did not directly confirm the amount, saying it could change. It takes money to kill bad guys, Hegseth said, but he said, we're going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded. And, of course, the Democrats, they would do anything they possibly could to stop that from happening. Big price tag faces scrutiny over war. It's an extraordinarily high number and comes on top of extra funding the Defense Department already received last year in President Donald Trump's big tax cuts bill. Now, let me see if I can... Yeah, this looks much better. All right. Where were we? Let's see. Such a request would need to be approved by Congress, and it is not at all clear such spending would have political support. The nation's debt has surged past a record $39 trillion. Congress has been bracing for a new spending request, but it is not clear the White House has transmitted the request for consideration. Lawmakers have not authorized the war, and Congress is showing growing unease with military operations scope and strategy. The new funding request was first reported by the Washington Post. Trump said the administration is asking for the money for other reasons beyond Iran. This is a very volatile world, the president said from the Oval Office. He said the emergency spending would be a very small price to pay to ensure the nation's military stays in top shape. While the House and Senate are controlled by the president's Republican Party, many of the more conservative lawmakers are also fiscal hawks with little political appetite for big spending on military operations or other matters. Most Democrats are likely to reject such a request and demand more detailed plans from the Trump administration about the U.S. military goals and objectives, which is kind of hard to share information with Democrats because they love leaking all that stuff to the press. Rep. Ken Calvert, the Republican chair of the House subcommittee with oversight over defense spending, said he was already advocating for a supplemental spending bill to allow the Pentagon to replenish munitions. Quote, that was going to happen, and now we have this conflict with some additional costs, so that's where we're at, Calvert of California said Thursday. I know there are peripheral issues out there that people are concerned about, but right now, this is about our national security, and it's important that we get this done. But Rep. Betty McCollum of Minnesota, the ranking Democrat on the House subcommittee with oversight over defense spending, said the president has taken the U.S. into a war without coming to Congress, and she's demanding more details. This is not going to be a rubber stamp for the president of the United States, McCollum said. She said Congress is still waiting for the administration to explain where it would be spending the additional $150 billion in funding that went to the Pentagon through Trump's tax and spending cut bill. It's also waiting on the president's budget request for this year. I'm not writing blank checks to the Department of Defense, McCollum said. See, like Democrats, they refuse to even say Department of War, which has been the official change. Negotiations ahead on a final package. It all points to a monumental battle ahead in Congress over any new Pentagon spending that would almost certainly need support from Republicans and Democrats in a bipartisan package to push past objections toward approval. The requested amount would be a hefty boost to the Pentagon's annual budget, which Congress approved at more than $800 billion for the current fiscal year. That's on top of some $150 billion that Congress gave the Defense Department in last year's tax cuts bill, much of it for specific projects and overall upgrades to the Pentagon's operations. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office has projected that the federal government will run a $1.9 trillion annual deficit this year, and that's before adding any spending done through a supplemental bill. Yeah, you see, that's where I really get hung up on the whole spending aspect, running it in a deficit, which means that's all going to be chalked up to the national deficit. We're going to be pushed over $40 trillion in our deficit, and the military is already getting $800 billion. And I tend to agree that we shouldn't be the world's police. I get it when there's certain things that threaten our interest in the world. I understand that. However, $800 billion, how is that not enough? I don't get that. Even including like $200 billion, they should be able to somehow be able to move things around and still make that $200 billion that they need work. But again, I'm totally ignorant when it comes to this stuff. It just really irritates me when they're talking 1.9 trillion, and if they get that 200 billion passed, it's going to be 2.1 trillion dollars that they're going to have to chalk up to the national deficit. We're going to have to pay that interest for literally forever because they have no plans to bring anything down as far as the deficit. House Speaker Mike Johnson said it is a dangerous time and we have to adequately fund defense. Asked whether he support the amount, Johnson said he has not seen the details, but I support what's needed to ensure that the American people remain safe. Okay, so there's just a little bit left, so I'll read the rest. While some of the military's biggest champions on Capitol Hill have welcomed new spending as a way to replenish munition stockpiles and upgrade U.S. defense capabilities in the face of emerging threats, others will certainly point to healthcare and other domestic needs that they view as more important priorities. Rep. Rosa DeLauro, the ranking Democrat on the House Appropriations Committee, said of the $200 billion price tag, "It's outrageous! To muscle a package to passage, Republican leaders could either try to go it alone through an arduous budget process or cut deals with Democrats on other priorities that would likely balloon the overall price tag." Well, yeah, dude. Democrats are all about spending. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, a Republican of Louisiana, signaled the negotiations ahead. "Ultimately, we're going to have negotiations with the White House on an exact amount," Scalise said. "We're not at that point yet." And that is that, at least so far. But yeah, I don't know. If you ask my opinion, I think Democrats are literally trying to do anything that they possibly can to make American society as dangerous and as risky and as uncertain as possible. I think that's the real reason that they closed Homeland Security, or that they're defunding Homeland Security, because they really want some massive attack to take place, because then they're going to blame it squarely on the Trump administration. They're just going to say that over and over again. They're just going to say that Trump is making our country a more dangerous place, and they just don't care, man. They're just that reckless, and that's how blind that they are with regard to their lust for power, and it's pretty sickening, really. And I honestly believe that. I think that's exactly what Democrats want. They just want maximum damage at all costs. All right, Genius Tech. Protesters in San Francisco, California, tried to block ICE agents escorting others inside the courthouse where an illegal immigrant was being arrested. The ICE agents drove their car through the protesters. Was their action justified? Yeah, you bet your ass it is. Look, if protesters, in the state that I live in, if protesters are blocking the road, if they touch your vehicle, all you have to do is touch it. You can drive right through them. And that's in the law in the state of Florida. If you have any reason to believe that people are blocking the road and you believe that you are under any threat at all from these protesters, rioters, or whatever you want to call them, then you don't have to stop for them. You can drive through them. I'm not saying that if there's people on the road, you could just start, veering toward them and just like plowing into them left and right. No, you definitely can't do that. That's very illegal. You don't want to do that. But if they're threatening your vehicle or if they're threatening your personal safety, then yeah, you have every right to just drive right through them. At least in the state of Florida, you do. ICE agents drive a vehicle through group of protesters. Let's see what happens. Every one of them should be immediately arrested. Obstruction. 8 years in prison. People are fucking retarded. Fucking retarded. They're just obsessed with becoming victims. They always have to be a victim of something, don't they? These modern progressives. Every one of them should have absolutely been arrested. I mean, not only are they committing felony obstruction against federal agents, but they're doing it on camera. All you have to do is play the video in court. It's an open and shut case. Logan Hall, Democrats, LOL, if we ever come to power again, we are going to flood the country with another 100 million illegals and throw you all in prison. So we already saw that. Yeah, we already saw that earlier because Elon Musk, I believe, reposted that. U.S. Department of Justice. The Justice Department sues Harvard University for anti-Semitism. Since October 7th, 2023, too many of our educational institutions have allowed anti-Semitism to flourish on campus, Harvard included, said AG Pam Bondi. Today's litigation underscores the Trump administration's commitment to demanding better from our nation's schools and putting an end to discriminatory behavior that harms students. It's going to be directly on justice.gov. Justice Department sues Harvard University for anti-Semitism. And today, the Justice Department Civil Rights Division filed a lawsuit against Harvard University for race and national origin discrimination against Jewish and Israeli students in violation of Title VI? VIIV, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. After Hamas's attacks on October 7, 2023, Harvard has tolerated anti-Semitic mobs of students, faculty, and visitors allegedly expressing their opposition to Israel by assaulting, harassing, and intimidating Jewish and Israeli students with perceived racial, ethnic, and national connections to Israel. Harvard has been deliberately indifferent to its Jewish and Israeli students' plight and failed to prevent such conduct by selectively enforcing its campus rules to permit it to continue. Harvard ignored what its own presidential task force on combating anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli bias deemed that the exclusion of Israeli or Zionist students from social spaces and extracurricular activities. Harvard failed to meaningfully discipline the mobs that occupied its buildings and terrorized its Jewish and Israeli students. Federal law prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in schools that accept federal funding. Since October 7th, 2023, too many of our educational institutions have allowed anti-Semitism to flourish on campus, Harvard included, said A.G. Pam Bondi. Today's litigation underscores the Trump administration's commitment to demanding better from our nation's schools and putting an end to discriminatory behavior that harms students. Every student deserves to learn without fear of harassment or exclusion, said Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. When institutions take taxpayer dollars, they accept a duty to protect civil rights. We hold Harvard accountable on the principle that anti-Semitism has no place in any program funded by the American people. This Department of Justice will not tolerate the harassment, assault, or intimidation of Jewish and Israeli students, and neither should Harvard, said Assistant AG Harmeet Dillon of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. This Justice Department has no tolerance for such brazen violations of federal law. When OCR notified Harvard of the Title VI violation, we recognized Harvard's public commitment to address anti-Semitism, but found its proposed reforms did not meet Title VI requirements, said Paula M. Stannard, director of the Department of Human Services Office for Civil Rights, or the OCR. OCR required concrete action, not assurances. We commend the U.S. Department of Justice for pursuing this case. The lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts alleges that Harvard has failed to protect its Jewish and Israeli students in two ways. First, Harvard has continued to be deliberately indifferent to a level of hostility on its campus so well known across the nation that members of Congress were writing about it. Second, Harvard has refused to enforce its campus rules against students who harass their Jewish and Israeli peers. Harvard is currently set to receive more than $2.6 billion of taxpayer money under active grants from the Department of Health and Human Services, to say nothing of other federal agencies. The United States complaint seeks to compel Harvard to comply with Title VI and to recover the taxpayer funds that Harvard accepted while in violation of Title VI. This case is brought by the Educational Opportunities section of the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division. And we've got the complaint right here that you can have a look at, which of course is a PDF, 44-page PDF of the complaint. United States District Court for the District of Massachusetts, United States of America, plaintiff versus president and fellows of Harvard College, the defendant. And I mean, dude, that is absolutely just ridiculous that, all right, hold on. Let me just make sure that it's, okay, so I'm just going to right click and open up a new tab so I don't forget to put this in the description. $2.6 billion of taxpayer money is going to Harvard. Harvard. You really think that they need federal money? No. Give me a break, dude. It's freaking Harvard. I mean, how much money do they have in their coffers? How many billions, tens of billions, 50 billion probably, that they have at their disposal? It's insane that these Ivy League schools are getting any federal funding at all. It's absolutely ridiculous, man. And Attorney General Pamela Bondi talking about the same thing. We sued Harvard University for enabling and even encouraging anti-Semitism on its campuses. The Trump administration has been abundantly clear. Any school that receives federal funds risks losing those funds if they permit blatant discrimination. And Speaker Mike Johnson, the weakness of leadership at our nation's universities have emboldened hatred and allowed campuses to devolve into hotbeds of radical anti-Semitism. If they can't uphold basic constitutional rights and keep students safe, they don't deserve taxpayer dollars. And you can read more from Education Workforce Committee's report, which is the House Committee on Education and Workforce. The committee just released a bombshell report on the spread of anti-Semitism on American college campuses. The report found that weak leadership, radical faculty, activist student groups, and foreign funding are to blame. You can read the report at edworkforce.house.gov. And it's a lot to go through, so of course I'm not going to go over it. But they have a background and a timeline of in the investigation in the 119th Congress. They've also got links to full reports here. Also, the report that they released, let's see, found evidence to support 4 conclusions. University leaders are still failing to show strong, decisive leadership to address anti-Semitism on college campuses. They're also faculty members are legitimizing and amplifying anti-Semitism on college campuses. Student groups are acting as ringleaders, driving anti-Semitic harassment and hostility. And American universities operating campuses in the Middle East are failing in critical ways to fulfill their stated goal of promoting American values. All right. And of course, that'll be below in the description. I think I might have one more with regard to anti-Semitism on college campuses, but maybe not. Yeah. So there's one more from Secretary Lori Chavez de Reamer, who is the 30th U.S. Secretary of Labor. And she says, thanks to the president, Americans' right to religious freedom in the workplace is more protected than ever before. Okay, so it's in the vein of religion, but this isn't the anti-Semitism on college campuses. So I was wrong about that. It's a different topic, but it's still within the realm of religion, religious freedom. To further advance this mission, the U.S. Department of Labor's Center for Faith just launched a new website with resources to help workers facing religious discrimination, along with other helpful information for faith organizations. That's on DOL.gov, of course, the Department of Labor. So here it is. This is the Center for Faith, as you can see up there. Again, U.S. Department of Labor. Welcome to the Center for Faith, engaging with faith-based organizations to maximize their participation in grant funding opportunities and minimize regulatory burdens. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The First Amendment, Constitution of the United States. And then they've got links, resources, about us, workforce discrimination, resources by state, and faith organizations, tips for programs and grants, and retirement plans, and all that good stuff. All right. And we've got U.S. Southern Command. So they're still active. They're still operating off the coast of Venezuela, out in the Latin American area. That is the area of responsibility for U.S. Southern Command. So on March 19th, at the direction of Southcom Commander General Francis L. Donovan, Joint Task Force Southern Spear conducted a lethal kinetic strike on a low-profile vessel operated by designated terrorist organizations. Intelligence confirmed the low-profile vessel was transiting along known narco-trafficking routes in the Eastern Pacific and was engaged in narco-trafficking operations. 3 narco-terrorists survived the strike. Following the engagement, U.S. Southcom immediately notified U.S. Coast Guard to activate the search and rescue system for the survivors. No U.S. military forces were harmed, so they actually somehow survived this, which I'm assuming they're going to be struck. Oh yeah, they were struck. Good Lord, man. How the hell did they survive that? Maybe they saw the rocket inbound or something and they just jumped. Holy cow, man. I can't believe that anybody would have survived that. But according to Southcom, there were 3 survivors from that. And let me see if there's anything else that they have on here. That may have been the most recent thing. So they reposted something from the Coast Guard. U.S. Southern Command, during testimony before the Senate Armed Services Committee yesterday, Southcom Commander General Francis L. Donovan talked about his recent visit to Venezuela to meet with Venezuela government leaders. Okay, well, that's interesting. Here, let's give this a quick play.
And soon after assuming command of Southcom, I was directed to take a trip to Venezuela, to Caracas, and meet with the current leadership of the Venezuelan government. And I will pause just for a second to highlight.
Who did you meet?
We met Delcy Rodriguez.
Okay.
And a number of her senior generals, the top 4. Mr.
She's
Chairman,
the interim president, by the way, of Venezuela.
But I will highlight for 1 second the incredible work Ambassador
Temporary
now
president.
Charge d'Affaires Doe is doing down there as our representative with a small team of 10 diplomats. The work they're doing with the Venezuelan government is staggering. And
Is it Charge as
Good,
as high as
fantastic.
we'll get down there?
Government is staggering. And
Is
I
it Charge as high as we'll get down there?
Chairman, I hope eventually we have an ambassador one day, and she was just recognized on the 5th of March as an official charge. And we raised the flag over the embassy the first time in, I think, 9 years.
Oh, wow.
So a good moment. But we got a chance to meet with the government there, highlight our concerns that had developed over time since the Maduro event. It was 46 days since that event, so it was a pretty remarkable setting. And we laid out what our concerns were, and since then, those actions have all been acted on by that government.
Wow. Amazing. I mean, I hope that's actually happening. Hopefully they are turning things around quickly. Sounds like they are. key partners in the region. During testimony before the Senate Armed Services Committee, Southcom Commander General Francis L. Donovan discussed the enduring security partnership with Panama that is vital to regional security and readiness, including joint efforts to combat narco-trafficking and ensure the defense of the Panama Canal. Of course, there's that, and they've got other stuff on here. I mean, they're updating this profile constantly. So if you want updates on what's happening on the Venezuela front or anything in South America in general, or Central America, the Caribbean, militarily, you can follow U.S. Southern Command over on the X platform. And they're posting on there daily. And Director Michael Kratsios, who is from the White House, right? Assistant to the President and 13th Director of WHOSTP 47. White House OSTP, the official account for the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. All right. Well, that's a long title. So anyway, he says today the White House released a common sense national AI policy framework that ensures every American benefits from AI. As the president has said, we need one federal AI policy, not a 50-state patchwork. This gets us there. Eager to work with Congress on this important legislation. I tend to agree with this. Look, I don't like over-regulation of really anything, but it seems to make sense. Just the fact that 50 states would have 50 different sets of laws as it pertains to AI, that could be, really messy, to put it lightly. Here are the most pressing topics in AI policy the national framework addresses: protecting children and empowering parents. Many Americans are concerned about children interacting with AI. Congress should require age assurance tools and ensure AI platforms give parents account controls and device limits, while platforms should implement strong features protecting against exploitation of children and encouragement of self-harm. I mean, that should just be the standard across the internet entirely. Number 2, safeguarding and strengthening American communities. Congress should codify the president's ratepayer protection pledge to ensure energy costs from data centers are not passed along to Americans. Congress should also strengthen law enforcement tools to fight AI-enabled scams against seniors. Not just seniors, dude. They should be going after everybody. Respecting intellectual property rights and supporting creators. American creators' works and identities must be protected, yet AI must be able to learn from the world it inhabits. Congress should support a balanced approach that allows for advanced AI training on copyrighted material while strengthening creators' ability to negotiate with AI providers and fight unauthorized AI replicas. Which, that tends to be a problem with AI, because if AI doesn't if AI doesn't get a continual input, new information that humans provided, then it's just going to stagnate, and it's not going to be able to advance if it's not getting any ongoing creative input from human beings. Then it's just going to be a stagnation over a period of time, because AI just cannot it can't self-create. It still needs humans to do that. All right, preventing censorship and protecting free speech. The federal government must defend free speech and be prevented from using AI systems to silence or censor lawful expression. Number 5, enabling innovation and ensuring American AI dominance. America is leading the world in AI development and deployment. Congress should strengthen our dominance with regulatory sandboxes, make more AI-ready federal data sets available, and look for additional ways to reduce regulatory barriers to innovation. And number 6, educating Americans and developing an AI-ready workforce. The administration wants American workers to participate in and reap the rewards of a new AI-powered economy. Congress should expand and strengthen workforce training programs and AI-related apprenticeships. Although the majority, really the vast majority of the workforce who are using AI in their daily duties are reporting that it's only adding more work to their plate, not taking away from it. I definitely read that somewhere. I don't believe I read that on this show. I think I just read that on my own time. I was reading something about AI, and yeah, apparently it's being quite counterproductive when it comes to most job positions, apparently. The White House, the Trump administration, is all in on winning the AI race for American prosperity, security, and a new era of human flourishing. Achieving these goals demands a common-sense national policy framework, unleashing American industry to thrive while ensuring all Americans benefit. And of course, I'm sure it's going to highlight the same 6 points that we just went over. Yeah, it does, so we'll have to read over that again, but this comes directly from the White House, so that'll be in the description, starting with whitehouse.gov. You want to have a look at that. And next, We've got Secretary Chris Wright. In the Biden administration, they celebrated the closing of power plants. In President Trump's administration, we celebrate the construction of new power plants to grow with the capacity of the grid and push down prices.
You're headed to Ohio today with the CEO of SoftBank, Masayoshi-san, and Commerce Secretary Lutnick for a big announcement tied to the investment between the U.S. and Japan. What can you tell us about that? When will we see the details coming out of this trip?
Yeah, this is an extremely exciting project. And look, this is at a location that used to be a gaseous diffusion plant. So think soon after World War II, this was a very necessary process for the United States to build our nuclear arsenal and ultimately to prevail in the Cold War. So a large industrial site that used to consume gigawatts of power for, again, a very large physical infrastructure. That was radioactive. We've cleaned it up over the last 20 years and got it prepared. It's a brownfield, but ready for new development. And what more perfect development than to build many gigawatts of new electric generating capacity that'll power data centers, that'll power other next generation manufacturing and industry in this area. It will be an absolute boom for this region of Ohio.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It'll help keep the United States in the lead in
Housing's
artificial
about to go way up.
intelligence, and it'll grow the capacity of our power grid so we can not only meet this new demand, but push down prices. That's what we need to push down prices in our country, is instead of the closing of power plants that were celebrated in the Biden administration, we're going to celebrate the construction of new power plants.
Amen.
And these power plants
nuclear.
are powered by natural gas,
Of course,
which
yeah,
is
these
the
are powered by natural gas.
superpower of American
deal with
energy.
Japan.
The price of pipeline-delivered natural gas in our country, our largest source of electricity, our largest source of home heating, has been completely unimpacted by what's going on in the Middle East.
Absolutely.
That's part of the magic of American natural gas.
Amen. Absolutely. It sure is. That is. That is what's nice about American natural gas. And rapid response, the two governments are pleased to make a new announcement on a second batch of projects, the construction of small modular reactors by GE Vernova Hitachi in Tennessee and in Alabama, estimated amount about $40 billion. The construction of natural gas generation facilities in Pennsylvania, about $17 billion. The construction of natural gas generation facilities in Texas, $16 billion. The first batch of projects announced on February 17th, manufacturing project for industrial synthetic diamonds, estimated amount $600 million. U.S. crude oil export infrastructure project, estimated about $2.1 billion. And natural gas generation project, estimated amount is $33.3 billion. And this is the joint announcement on the Japan-U.S. strategic investment. And I will have that linked, of course. And let's go on to the next, because the next few posts are related to this. So we'll be able to cover these facilities right here from the U.S. Department of Commerce. U.S.-Japan deal. GE Vernova Hitachi SMRs BWRX-300. Tennessee and Alabama. They're small modular nuclear reactors, up to $40 billion, 3 gigawatts. And the operator is GE Vernova Hitachi. And what's nice about these modular reactors is that they can be shipped by trucks to different locations. That's what's awesome about these small modular reactors. They can essentially manufacture them on an assembly line style, where I think they said that they're aiming for something like 50 or 100 per year when they're at their maximum level of manufacturing once the facilities are all built. I think it's something like 2029, maybe 2030 is when they're going to be at that point where they're going to be cranking them off this assembly line. It's probably going to look similar to building like airliners. They're not going to be cranking out like 10 a day. It's going to take a period of time to construct all of these, but they'll be able to move them to locations far away from the factory if needed, and they can produce up to gigawatt level power generation. I mean, some of these small modular reactors supposedly could power up to 300,000 homes, even though initially these aren't going to be powering residential areas. They're going to be powering data centers. But I would say at some point, once they've got all the data centers all powered up, they could probably start cranking those out for residential. That'd be freaking wild, man. U.S. Department of Commerce, U.S.-Japan deal. Another one, Project Southmon, Southwest Pennsylvania Gas Hub, Southwest Pennsylvania Natural Gas Fired Generation Hub, up to $17 billion, 4.3 gigawatts, serving 3.5 gigawatt demand. The operator is Next Era Energy Resources. And there it is, Project Southmon Natural Gas Generation Facility. 4.3 gigawatts. And one more, Another U.S.-Japan deal. Project Anderson, Texas gas hub, Anderson County, Texas, natural gas-fired generation hub, up to $16 billion, up to 5.2 gigawatts, serving around 5 gigawatts of demand. The operator is Next Era Energy Resources. Project Anderson, natural gas generation facility, $16 billion, 5.2 gigawatts. And moving on to Scott Turner, President Trump's executive order promoting access to mortgage credit increases competition by inviting community banks back into the mortgage lending business. This will be crucial for rural and low-income Americans in search of the American dream of home ownership. I mean, look, I push back against this all the time. Low-income Americans, they can't afford a $400,000 house. They really can't, because the middle class can't afford that. The average American can't. Only 15% of Americans can afford the average priced house today. So I don't really see how far this is really going to go. I mean, I guess it's nice that local credit unions and banks are going to participate, I guess, in the housing lending market, but let's see what he says.
EO that Maria mentioned when she introduced you, and that is the one that would empower community banks, working with community banks so that you ease lending standards so that more Americans could go to the community bank down the street.
Ease the lending standards too
people
much,
that they know, who
especially
know
for
them,
low-income houses.
that can get that mortgage. It's a wonderful idea. Obviously, the concern on the other side would be that you have lending standards get too loose, and we end up in some situation like we were back in the 2008-2009 financial crisis. How do you make sure that we do this in the best way possible?
Well, you can't give $400,000 loans to low-income families.
You know, this is a tremendous executive order from the president, because as you alluded to, our hometown lenders, the community banks, were really pushed out of the mortgage game and did not have the opportunity to provide mortgages to those, in particular in our rural areas.
Well,
and those
dude, they don't have the capital. They don't have the capital.
And first-time home buyers. And so what this does, it keeps the rigor. It keeps the rigor in those applying for mortgages. This is for credit-worthy people, and so I understand the 2008-2009 financial crisis fears that people have, but this EO is tight. It keeps the rigor, but what it does is it increases the competition for those providing mortgages, and it also brings the cost down and gets our hometown lenders back in the game. And so I'm excited about this. It'll open up the market for those people living in our rural communities, low to moderate income families, and also first-time home buyers. So I think this is a great thing for our country to help people to achieve the American dream of home ownership.
Yeah, very, very good point there.
Well, I mean, if it gets cost, like if the interest rates are reduced as a result of this, I could see how that might bring down costs. But if you get a whole bunch of people, whether if they're low income or middle class or even upper class, regardless of that, if there's a whole bunch of people in the area that are suddenly looking to buy a house, that's not going to reduce housing. That's going to cause houses to go up in price as demand increases. And Dr. Oz from the Centers of Medicaid and Medicare Services. The 1980s called and they want their fax machines back. CMS is slashing wasteful spending and antiquated paperwork by swapping out faxes and mailing for streamlined electronic transactions. Today's new rule will modernize American healthcare by standardizing electronic claims attachments and enabling secure electronic signatures. Because every minute providers save on paperwork is another minute they can spend caring for patients. You can learn more at cms.gov. Of course, that'll be linked as always. I'm not too crazy about this because wouldn't this encourage more fraud to happen if you're taking electronic signatures as opposed to actual handwritten signatures? I figured that handwritten signatures would be a better way to combat the whole fraud thing that we've been going after all year. I don't know. You know, what do I know? So we've got this video clip from Dr. Oz. I think it's just a generic. Yeah, there you go. Fax machines. I don't know, man. A lot of medical providers, a lot of doctors' offices, I have a feeling that they're still probably using fax machines to this day, and they might be a little reluctant to do so, even though I think they do like email fax now, don't they? I think you can send a fax to somebody and it'll arrive in like an email inbox as opposed to like a literal fax machine to fax machine. Anyway. Rolling on to Right Angle News Network. Earlier today, breaking: police in Atlanta are receiving massive applause after announcing they will arrest and charge parents of teenagers caught engaging in the planned teen takeovers this weekend in their city, which with many saying that they want to see similar crackdowns in their own communities. Yeah, that's exactly what they should do. I'm not sure if there would be any legal standing to charge the parent with exactly what the teenager did. However, parents should be charged criminally if they allow their adolescent, teenager, or their children, because they're under the age of 18 to go out and commit crimes, especially when it's after curfew. But regardless, even if they're committing crimes and it's not curfew, they're still committing crimes, and you, the parent, you're responsible for them.
What charges could they face if they are not aware or just let their kids be a part of this?
In certain circumstances, there are avenues that we can take, and we plan on exploring every avenue involved in these takeovers. And yes, in some cases, it would involve charging parents.
All right. Well, they didn't get any more specific than that, at least not in this clip. I imagine that they might, if wherever the full clip may be available. Sometimes it's a little frustrating sometimes that when they have these clips that they drop and they're only 17 seconds. I mean, come on, man. You couldn't have given us at least a minute? All right. That's all right. So wrapping things up with NASA. Happy vernal equinox today. Today marks the first day of spring in the northern hemisphere and the first day of autumn in the southern hemisphere. After today, the sun will shine more directly on the northern hemisphere than on the southern hemisphere until the autumnal equinox. And we just got images of the Earth from, let's see, 2010, December 21st, 2010, then March 20th, 2011, and June 21st, 2011, and then September 20th of 2011. So, of course, winter, spring, summer, and fall. And to finish up with NASA Artemis from 8 hours ago, the Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft for the Artemis 2 mission arrived to the launch pad today at 11:21 a.m. Eastern, or at 15:21 UTC. We are gearing up for preparations ahead of a launch of the crewed lunar mission. The earliest possible launch opportunity is April the 1st, dude. It is already coming up. It's already here. It might as well already be here. It's getting pretty damn close. I can't wait for this to happen. They're going to send the astronauts up to the moon. They're going to take a trip around the moon. It's going to be the farthest distance that humans have ever traveled. I can't wait, man. I've been looking forward to this for literally years at this point. And they're going to bring, I don't know if they're GoPros, but they're going to bring 4K quality cameras. They're going to be filming it all. It's going to be pretty cool. I can't wait for it. I'm very excited for them to launch them and head around the moon. I want to see the footage. I want to see the whole experience provided by the astronauts in the Artemis 2 mission. So that'll do it for tonight's episode. If you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I'll be back on Monday as we explore the swamp Monday through Friday and everyone in it, the politicians, bureaucrats, agencies, the administration. I also post daily on X, which is where you can peek at the content for the next episode. And don't forget, the video clips from tonight will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow morning. Thank you very much for watching. Always remember to stay positive. God bless the troops and God bless America.